So this is Jay Dawes with Elite Sports Services, and I'm the education director for the group here. And today we're with Dr. Gene Coleman, and just going to talk about a little bit about his experiences and kind of pick his brain on some of the things he's done over the years. So, Coach, I think background-wise we started out fairly similar. Like my first love was baseball. And I was a little fat kid, and all my buddies made the team, and I wasn't quite good enough to do that. So, I kind of started developing an enthusiasm for strength conditioning and trying to learn how I could make that next jump and actually make the team. And at that point in time, back in the mid '80s, resistance training and strength conditioning wasn't necessarily advocated by a lot of coaches, especially for baseball. But just curious, over the course of your career, like what changes have you seen as far as implementing strength conditioning training with baseball players in particular?
Well, my first year in baseball, I went to spring training with the Astros minor leaguers in 1976, and they had experimented with Exergenie about a decade before that, and with disastrous results.
Right.
And so the goal was that we were going to introduce strength training at the minor league level, and we were going to start at the AA team, and then see if we could progress up the ladder. And so first thing we did was we measured strength. We measured upper body strength and lower body strength in all of our minor league players. And what we found was when we compared them to strength training classes, and I was teaching a couple of strength training classes at the University of Texas at Austin, that they were weaker. So we had professional athletes that were weaker than kids who were starting a strength training class. Not finishing a strength training class, but starting a strength training class. In terms of upper body and lower body strength. And this is understandable because the specificity of training, these kids were basically either signing out of high school or signing out of college and had no formal resistance training program. So we continued that for a year, and when they came back to spring training the next year, they had made significant improvements. And the goal then was that we were going to advance up to the next level. So we would take it 1 year at a time. As it turned out, I ended up that was in '76. In '77, we went back to spring training. As I said, we had recorded those movements, those improvements. And during that summer, we had moved to Houston. And I remember my wife at breakfast was picking up the paper, and she said, "Hey, do you know the Astros Major League team is 22 games out of first place?" And about noon, I got a phone call from the general manager asking me if I could come down and talk with him. So I went down and met with the general manager, the bench coach, and so forth. And they just told me, "Hey, we're going to move it up. We're going to move up the program. We're going to start at the big league level. When can you start?" And I said, "Well, when's the season going to be over?" And they said, "Well, the season will be over in October, 1st of October. I said, "Well, then we'll start about 2 weeks after that." And they said, "Oh, no, you don't understand. We need to start now. We're 22 games out of first place." And I said, "You don't need me today. You need Oral Roberts." All right? Because I guarantee you, we start a program today, and come the end of the season, we're going to be 20 games out, 22 games out, 24 games out. It's not going to work any miracles.
Yeah. Well, and then basically strength conditioning is not useful because it didn't.
Yeah. Right. And I said, plus, when it comes time to do this off-season program, they're going to say, "Oh, we already did that, and it didn't work."
Right.
And fortunately, they bought into it, and we did a needs analysis. There's no information on baseball, and I was working with a group of my students, and I were working with some people over at NASA, and we were doing astronaut selection. So basically what we did was we took all those tests that we were using for astronaut selection and brought them into the Astrodome and tested the players. But at that time, the Astros didn't have a radar gun. They weren't measuring speed with a stopwatch. So we brought in metabolic carts. We did skin folds. We took them out and underwater weighed them. And we did that from, I'd say, end of July until September. So every home game, a home series, we were evaluating something. And then our equipment came in September, and we used September to teach them, how to utilize the equipment, but not any training. And then we started our formal training in October. So at that time, there were 3 teams that were doing something. We were doing it, the Reds were doing it, and the Phillies were doing it. And that was the start of it. And when you would go on the road, none, with the exception of Cincinnati and Philadelphia, there was no place to work out. So you had to do push-ups and squats and body weight type stuff. And now you look at it, and almost every major league team now has a weight room in the visiting clubhouse for visiting teams. So yeah, it's progressed a lot.
Yeah, you say that. So, well, and that's kind of neat to hear the beginnings of it all, and because I know that even to this day, there's some still prevailing thoughts that you're going to get big bulky muscles, and that's going to hinder your throwing performance and your ability to some of the more skill related attributes. And I think with a lot of the research that you've done over time, that we've seen that that's just not true.
Yeah, no, it's not true. And what we found is minds have changed. Mm-hmm. I mean, I can't remember the last time I ran into somebody in Major League Baseball, whether it be a scout or a coach or a general manager, that was skeptical of what conditioning would do. As a matter of fact, there are elaborate reporting systems now. The general managers, trainers, managers, and so forth want to know, what are their kids doing, how often are they doing it, and then they're actually checking on them. As low down as the minor league level, they're getting weekly reports, and if a kid's not doing what he's supposed to be doing, then he gets a phone call from somebody.